Hello, everybody. You're very welcome to an evening of storytelling to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Pagan Federation. Well done, guys. And thanks, Tara, for the invitation. It's going to do a story of maybe two, you never know, depending on time. This is an old Irish story. It's called The Lie King. Long time ago, there were 5 provinces in Ireland. The 4 you got today, and the province of Tara, where the High King resided. And he was the boss. He bossed everybody. He bossed the other 4 kings and all his people. But the people loved him, and he loved his people, because the High King was a storyteller, and he loved stories. The more elaborate, the more outrageous, the more lies, the better he liked it, and the better the people liked it too. And every Friday evening, he would gather on the hill of Tara, and there they would tell each other stories, well into the early hours. And this went on for many years. The country was prosperous. There was plenty of grain in the coffers. Nobody was hungry. Nobody was thirsty. Until one evening, the High King called the other 4 kings together. And he says, right, he says, I'm banning storytelling. And the king of Ireland says, what are you talking about? I'm banning storytelling, said the High King. But why, said the king of Ulster? You can't do that. We're Irish people. You can't be banning storytelling in Ireland. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing, says the High King. I'll tell you for why. There's nothing new. I've heard all those stories before. I know all the punchlines. I've written most of them myself. And it's do nothing for me anymore. Now you ban storytelling. I'm the boss, he said. And of course he was the boss. And the other 4 kings, they went back to their provinces, and the proclamations went out. Anybody caught storytelling would have their tongues cut out. Wow, that didn't go down too well. From a country of prosperity and wealth and food and drink, now the people were depressed. They couldn't talk to each other in case to be able to tell a story. And if they were telling a story, the tongues would be cut out, and they couldn't have that. This great depression grew all over the country. No one wanted to work. When they went to work, they couldn't work. And gradually, the grain stocks went down, and the 4 kings got together. And they said, look, we've got to get storytelling back. We've only got about 5 weeks of grain left in the coffers. People need to be able to do the storytelling. Well, says the king of Munster, let's all go back and see the High King. And they did. And he says, what are you doing back here? The king of Connacht says, look, we need to get storytelling back. Why, says the High King? Because the people are depressed. They're lonely. And there's only about 5 weeks of grain left in the coffers. Well, when the High King heard that, he was a portly man. He loved his food. And he scratched his big old white beard. He says, you know, fellas, he says, I may have been a bit hasty banning storytelling. I'll tell you what, go out and tell them we can do the storytelling again. Says the king of Ulster, it's not that simple. Why, says the High King? I'll tell you for why. Because you hurt your people, they love you. And you've hurt them. So you need some incentive to bring them back to storytelling. We got to lift this depression from them. And of course, the king, he wasn't married, so he didn't have a beautiful daughter to give away in marriage or anything. So he thought to himself, I'll tell you what, he says, I'll tell you what. Go and tell your people. The first person that comes to me with a story so outrageous, so elaborate, so full of lies, that I will say, that's a lie, it never happened. I will give to them half my kingdom. That's the king of Connacht. That's a great idea. I'm sure that'll get the juices flowing again. But I hope so, says the High King. I will ban it again. And the 4 kings went back out to their provinces, and the proclamations went out. Anybody that can go to the High King with a story, it's outrageous, so full of lies, so elaborate, that he will say, that's a lie, it never happened, will get half his kingdom. Well, soon the people began back working. They were able to tell each other stories, they were able to talk to each other. And soon people start going to the big round house. Now, forget about these fairy tales things about castles and palaces. There was no such thing in those days. It was a huge big round house and a big chimney right up the middle of it, and a big fire at the bottom of it, and a big round table not far from the fire. And they would go to his door, and he'd get up, he'd open the door himself, and he'd no servants on. He'd bring him in, give him a bottle of meat or two, and he'd listen to their stories. But he'd send them away. And after about 6 months of this, it was nothing new. He had heard it all before. And he was very seriously thinking about banner storytelling again. Until one evening, a knock came to the door, and he opened the door, and he says, who are you and what do you want? And this man says, my name is Connor, and I want half your kingdom. No, we'll see about that, said the High King. Now come in. And he sat Connor down by this big round table, gave him 2 bottles of mead. And when Connor finished the 2 bottles of mead, he brought him outside. Now Connor, he says, look over there. You see over there? 26 beehives. Have you ever seen so many beehives in all your life? Ah, that's nothing. That's nothing, says Connor. My mammy, she has got 365 beehives, one for every day of the year. And every beehive has 48,612 bees. And it's my job to count those bees out every morning. We don't want any lazy drones hanging around, you know. And it's my job to count them all back one evening. Now, that's a lot of bees. 365 times 48,612 is 17,743,380. And one evening, when I counted them back in, I only counted 17,743,379. Well, there was one bee missing. But I couldn't sleep easy in my bed if there was a bee missing. So I went and I got my horse, and I rode to the highest hill, and I scanned the valley below. And I saw the bee, and I rode down to it. And that bee was so full of honey, it couldn't get off the ground. So I rode back home, and I got 9 wicker baskets and a shovel. And I went back to the bee, and I put the 9 wicker baskets across the back of the horse. And I started shoveling the honey into the wicker baskets. And you know, I only had 7 wicker baskets filled when the horse's legs began to buckle under the weight of the honey. Well, I went to the hedge, and I grabbed a big long stick, and I brought it over, and I shoved it right up his jacksie, just to reinforce the ribcage, you see. Hey, said the king. Oh, dear, 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 dear. That's not impossible. That could happen. Well, he sent Connor away with a sting in his ear. Isn't that nice? He sat by himself on this big fire, and he's scratching his white beard, and he thought, you know, I nearly lost half my key. I was very nearly going to say that's a lie, it never happened. It was such a great story. And I just wish now, he's thinking to himself, I'm just wishing that I'd let him tell him more of that story. And I wish he had let him tell more of that story as well, because I'd be able to tell you what happened there. But it's not the end of the story. Because the High King was happy now. The juices were flowing again. And this was a story that he'd never heard before. And he still had all his kingdom. But 3 days later, another knock came to the door. The High King went up, opened the door, he said, who are you, and what brought you here? Oh, my name is Terence, and what brought me here won't take me to my grave. Ah, said the king, you're a smart one, all right. Now come in. And he sat Terence at the table and gave him some meat. Now Terence, I can tell you, he was a born liar. You see, exactly 10 seconds after he'd been delivered by An Bancrina, the wise woman of the time, the midwife, Terence opened one eye and he looked at his mother. He said, Mommy, he said, I hope the service out here is a bit better than it was in there. Yeah. And when he was exactly 4 years old, his mother took him to school. Because you started school at 4 years old in those days. Even in my day, I started at 4. She was only 5 minutes in the school. And she dropped him there with the headmaster. There's no school runs in those days. No. Walk there, walk home. Now, she didn't dally on the way home. But when she opened her door, there was Terence sitting at the table, dipping bread soldiers into a softball leg. His mother looked at him, but she daredn't say a word. She knew what he was like. But when she left her with the headmaster, Terence convinced the headmaster that he was 16 years old. And he'd already done 12 years of school. Well, you know and I know, teachers don't become teachers unless you've got something going on up there. And especially headmasters. They've got to have a little bit of intelligence, I can tell you. They won't get the jobs otherwise. But he wasn't going to fall for that. 16 years old. Huh? Wow. But when Terence produced his A levels, his O levels, and then he produced the spirit level, what could the headmaster do? He says, Terence, I'm really sorry, but I can't teach you anymore. If you have been here for 12 years already. Terence went off home. As you know that bit of the story. And here he is now, the High King of Ireland, drinking mead. 4 bottles of mead he had. And when he finished the 4th bottle of mead, the High King said, right, Terence, come out here. I'll just show you. And Terence followed him out. And the High King, look over there. You see that cherry tree? Have you ever seen a tree so big in all your life? Now, every year, we have cherries as big as herringbirds. Said Terence, look, that's only a sapling, a little tree. My mammy has a tree, and it goes all the way into heaven. And every Sunday morning, I climb that tree to go to Mass. Because it's easier for me to go to Mass there than go to the church. The council haven't been out, fixed the potholes yet, and I don't want to get my shoes all of that. And there I was one Sunday afternoon, after Mass was over. I was about to go home to my mammy, and she was having bacon and cabbage for me dinner that day as well. She had it every Sunday for me. But a big storm came, and the tree fell down. And there's me stuck in heaven, and there's me mammy down below screaming at me that my bacon and cabbage will be getting cold if I don't hurry up. Well, I looked around at me, and all I could see there was some old straw. So I grabbed bunches of the straw, and I started to make myself a rope, 4 plants. And I kept doing it. Down it went. Till eventually my mammy tugged at the other end. I got it, son, I got it. Well, I tied my end to the pearly gates. And I said to St. Peter, now St. Peter says, don't you let nobody in here, saint nor sinner, till I get home to my bacon and cabbage. Well, I started to go down, fist under hand, hand under fist. And I was going grand, I was. And I was about 50 yards from my mother. And she said, you're doing well, son. You're doing very well. Well, I was, until the rope broke. And I started to plunge towards the ground. And she started to scream. And she thought it was going this way. She ran this way. But the wind took me that way. She went that way. The wind took me down. And I was heading down, and the river. And I can't swim. And just as we're about to plunge in, my mother, she came over and she pulled out her apron, and her apron was so tight that I bounced right back up into the air again. 3 somersaults in a fight. And down, straight down into the river I went. Well, I could see my life going in front of my eyes. And when I hit the riverbed, I opened my eyes, and there, swimming by, was a big salmon. And I grabbed the salmon around the neck like that, and I held on to it, and it took me right up onto the bank. And there's me mammy standing at the door, waiting for me. And I says, Mammy, I says, here you are. Can we have some salmon for a change? I'm fed up with bacon and cabbage every Sunday. Well, she went in and she got her sword. And she came out and she cut the head off the salmon. And then she cut the salmon from the neck all the way down through the belly. Would you believe what happened? Out popped a notebook, I said. And I got the notebook and I opened it. And it said in big capital letters that your father worked for my father for 2 pennies a fortnight, shaving gooseberries. Now, one afternoon, when my father was out looking for more gooseberries for your father to shave, your father went indoors and compromised my mother. So that means I'm the oldest son and this kingdom belongs to me. That's a lie, said the hag. That never happened. All of you that's been listening, you know that Terence now had half the kingdom. And every night, in front of that big open fire, Terence and the High King would tell each other stories. So elaborate, so outrageous, so full of life. And sometimes we'd be there in the early hours of the morning. And one night, Terence was just after finishing his 7th bottle of mead, and he fell asleep in his chair. It was, of course, about 5 in the morning by this time. And the High King looked over and he squinted and he started to scratch his old white beard and he thought to himself, how did I lose half my kingdom? Why did I say that's a lie? It never happened. And he looked and he squinted at Terence again, because Terence was still 26 years old. Well, thank you. That's my first story. I'll tell you another story now. It's an old story, it's an old English story, and it's called The Woman Who Paid With Nothing. Now, as you all will know, poverty is the plight of the poor. Always was, always will be. The people who have money will always have it. People who haven't probably will never. And it's pretty tough these days, even at the time of welfare state. You know, at least we might get a few bob here and there from the welfare. You have to jump through a lot of hoops. But it's certainly a lot easier than it would have been back in the 16th century. If he didn't have work, he didn't have much. And this is about a very poor man. The only thing he had going for him was his wife. They lived in a very small house, a little round house made of stone. The draft was coming in through the stones, the roof would be leaking, there was no window. But that's all they had. And he would go looking for work wherever he could. He was a forester. And if he had tools, he would be a very good forester. But he couldn't afford his tools, especially an axe. He was a dab hand with an axe. He could fell any tree with a couple of swipes with his axe. But without an axe, he couldn't work. And he'd walk very, very long distances to try and get work. Sometimes he'd walk up to 50, 60 miles to get work. He would go the evening beforehand. He would sleep, you know, maybe in the stable or in the cow shed and a bale of straw, maybe under a hedge if it was summertime. Make sure he was there first in the morning to apply for a job. But whatever he seemed to do, he could never wake up on time. And by the time he got to where the job was, there was 50, 60 people in front of him. And this is what happened once. He had stayed in a barn overnight. He'd even stood against the wall to try and keep awake, that he would be there first, that first light he would be down for the job. But his legs gave way and he slid down that wall and he slept. And he woke up, the sun was well high. He looked, there's too many people. And he started to wander home. He had about 40 miles to walk. Now, that was a long distance, especially when you had to face your wife and tell her still no work. There was no coin in the house. She may or may not have had it tucked away somewhere. He certainly had not. His boots were worn, his clothes were worn. And he was in a very, very deep state of depression. And as he started walking home, he started thinking, what can I tell my wife? I keep making the same excuses. The job was gone, the job was gone. And she was really getting fed up with all these excuses. But in the distance, he saw some dust rising. For this was around the time of summer. The ground was dry. There was no roads as such as you have today. It would be all mud. And the dust was rising, and he saw the figure of a man, a figure of a stranger. And he thought he could hear some words. It was too far away. But the sound got closer and closer and closer until he could make out the words. What do you lack? What do you lack? What would you hack for the sack of my back? The stranger kept repeating it. He came right up close to the poor man. What do you lack? What do you lack? What would you hack from the sack of my back? It was like a rucksack that we have today. And he took it off, he put it on the ground, and he opened it up. And there were things of all description. Things of the day. Lots of candlesticks, of course, candlelight was a thing of the day. There's things of clothes pegs. They were a thing of the day. Anything you could want was there. But the poor man's eye only stared at one thing. There was an axe. There was an axe with a beautiful shine. There was a handle. There was gold up one side and silver down the other side. And the stranger looked at him. You were looking at the axe? Would you mind? Said the poor man that brought it. Oh, go ahead. The poor man bent down, he picked it up. He knew straight away this was the axe for him. He knew the weight of it. He could take a forest down in a day just on his own with one axe. It was exactly what he always wanted. He says, you don't mind me asking, how much would this cost me? It would cost you 50 shillings, says that's 50 shillings. That's probably 10 years' wages for this poor man, if he even could make it in 10 years. And he put the axe down and he began to walk away, and the stranger said, hold on, come here, man. I can see you like the axe. And I can see the axe likes you. Now you can have this axe for nothing. Really, says the poor, of course. You can have the axe for nothing. The poor man bent down, picked it up, and he started to walk away. Hold on, said the stranger, hold on. Come here a minute. The poor man walked back. He says, on one condition. Well, the poor man's face fell. And had he looked down at the ground 3 or 4 minutes sooner, he would have seen there were not 2 feet there, but there were 2 cloven hoofs. For this was no other than the poor dog, the devil himself holding it. And the devil looked at the poor man and said, there is one condition. And what is that, says the poor man? You can have this for nothing. As long as when I come for payment in 7 days' time, you pay me with nothing. All right, said the poor man. And he started to walk home. Now, this is great. I pay him with nothing. I pay him with nothing. It's so easy. But as he got towards his house, he began to think, hold on a minute. There's something worth nothing. Should be easy enough. When he went into his little hovel of a house, his wife was out. And he got his axe and he stepped up on a chair and he put it on the highest shelf. He only had one shelf and it was very high, close to the ceiling. I began to think of what he'd done. And the next morning his wife elbowed him. Are you going out to get a job today? I am, he said. but he could only go halfway to where he was going. He was thinking about what was he going to do? Really, really depressing. And the following day, what they said, the following day, and she said, look, she says, what is going on? You still haven't got any coin. You haven't brought any money. But I can't get work. She says, you're not looking, are you? Yeah. There's only 2 days left before the devil was coming for him. And the devil had said, unless you can pay me with something or nothing, I am taking your soul. No. He certainly didn't want, he was poor, but he didn't want to go this way. He broke down, he told his wife the story. Oh, she said, you are a fool. You are a fool. And the next day came and went, and on the 7th morning, there was a bang, bang, bang on the door. That's him, said the poor man to me. That's him. Please don't let him in. Please don't let him in. I don't want him to take me. And he started to run. Now, this is a roundhouse. And he started to run across the floor. And on the ground in front of him, he saw a feather. And he went down his knees. That's it, he said. A feather. Surely a feather is worth nothing. I can pay with this. His wife looked at him and she shook her head. You foolish man, she said. You foolish man. What do you think is in our pillows? What do you think we've got in our manky one mattresses? It's feathers. And she told him 1,000 things that you could do with feathers. And I'm sure some of you know a few things as well what you can do with feathers. But anyways, this poor man, the next thing was all this bang, bang, bang on the door again. Bang, bang, bang. I said, please, please don't let him in. Please don't let him in. And he saw a piece of straw. And he picked it up. That's it. That's it, he said. Piece of straw. Surely straw is worth nothing. And his wife looked at him and she shook her head again. She said, you foolish man. What do you think is between those stones we've built? What do you think is trying to keep the rain from our heads on the roof? And she told them 1,000 things that can be done with straw. And then there was bang, bang, bang again. And he ran to the darkest part of his little house. He thought, of course, if he can't see the devil won't see him. And as he's in the darkest part, just outside his window, a cart was going by. And the smell, it was the man collecting all the manure from the humans as well as the animals. And he said, that's it, he said. Manure. Surely manure is worth nothing. And she says, you foolish man. What do you think grows our few carrots every year? Manure. What do you think we mix with the straw to try and keep those stones in the walls of our house? Manure. And she told him 1,000 things to do with manure. Now she says, I'll deal with this. You get out of my sight, she said. And there was a bang, bang, bang on the door again. He says, I'm coming in, I will break it down. Well, the poor man jumped straight out that window. His wife was there, and she reached under the bed for the chamber pot. He had already emptied it there. And she got hold of that, and she stood on the chair, and she took the axe down, and she put it on the table, and she put the chamber pot up the highest shelf. And bang, bang, bang. And she went to the door. She says, yes, can I help you? You know you can help me. I've come for your husband. What do you want with my husband? Do you have work for him? No. He has got something for me. Oh, she says, oh, yes, that's right. He told me all about it. It's up there, she said. Where? Up there. In that shelf. What? The devil He didn't need to stand a cheer, he was so tall. And he got up on his tippy hoofs, I suppose you could say, his tippy hoofs. And he felt up top the shelf and the chamber pot. She says, it's in the chamber pot. And he felt around. He says, there is nothing here. That's right, she said. You came to be paid with nothing. Now you've got it. Well, the devil. He did not like them outfoxed by a mere woman. And he got into a rage. And he got that chamber pot and he flew to the floor and it smashed into smithereens. And he walked over and he grabbed his axe off the table. And he went out that door. And he wasn't really all that disappointed because he knew he wouldn't go very far before he would find someone else that would sell their soul for an axe or a knife or something similar. No. The wife smelled something awful. And she looked around. And there was her husband. Is he gone yet? Is he gone yet? And she said, you, she said, what is that smell? And of course, when he jumped out the window, he jumped straight into the cart of horse manure, cow manure, God knows what manure, and ruined manure. And she couldn't stand it any longer. She says, you're disgusting, she said. And she went out. And there he was, the poor man, surveying his little home, one little room. He was born poor. He was poor, and he knew he was going to die poor. But at this particular moment, as he stood there surveying his little room, this was the poorest he had ever been. Because now he really did not have a pot to sell. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you enjoyed my stories. And I want to thank Tara for inviting me once again. And happy 50th birthday to the Pagan Federation. Thank you all very, very much indeed. Florence. If you want to get in touch, there's me at the back. Bards Aloud at yahoo.co.uk. Storytelling for any occasion. Very best wishes to you all.